there's this process called the hero's journey, and this was made famous, of course, by Joe Campbell, and there's a bunch of lore about how Joseph Campbell's work directly influenced Star Wars and the development of Star Wars. So where this came from was kind of cross-cultural analysis, different creation mythologies and mythologies we see in so many cultures all over the world. We see what's called a cultural hero. And that hero can be dubious at some times, and then they can be kind of like an idealized positive moral figure. One of the dubious ones, of course, is the coyote figure in the American Indian or Native American tradition, where you see like this trickster figure who's also a cultural hero that has to do with building the culture and giving the sacred medicine for that culture. But so Campbell, his innovation was that he was able to look at cross-cultural mythologies and fairy tales and things of that nature and really come up with a kind of structural morphology. Morphology means kind of like the study of shape. So it's weird to say this, but what Campbell was onto was that stories actually have a shape. Weird to think of it that way. We often don't think of it that way, but they do. These shapes tend to play themselves through in similar ways across cultures. And what he saw in terms of the shape, the arc of the hero, and hero mythologies, this is the hero's journey. It's the arc where you have different stages of development where, for example, there's one stage called the call. And often at that stage, the hero, the first layer of response is to run the hell in the opposite direction, like get away from it as soon as possible. For example, Obi-Wan Kenobi comes to Luke and says, "You're the guy, you're the special guy," and Luke literally runs in the opposite direction. And we see that all over the place. This kind of the call comes and then we run in the opposite direction. And then, another portion of the hero's journey is what's called the descent. So there's a descending into the darkness, into what Jung called the night sea journey, where we're afloat out in the ocean at night. We can't see where north is. There's an occlusion to the stars, so we can't navigate. We're depressed or, feeling lost. And it's really this dark aspect where the hero gives up basically and just can't see a way through. And what Campbell was saying basically, and Jung and some of the other folks that think about the shape of stories in this way, is the hero can't get his gifts or her gifts, but unless there's one of these night sea journey things. It's an ordeal. So there's a descent into a dark space where there's an ordeal and really a meeting with terror, with fear, with hopelessness, with faithlessness, with, the parts in us that just don't feel like we can survive or thrive, and there needs to be an encounter with that in order to get the gifts. And then so you see in a lot of these stories that there's a kind of descent into the underworld. In old mythologies, you see that. There's a descent, for example, in Inanna myth. Basically she's got to, in order to enter into the underworld, this dark space, she's got to hang her skin on on a meat hook in order to enter into the underworld. Now that's quite an ordeal. And we could make a metaphor of that. Like, what is it that is superficial about us that needs to be hung on the treatment room door in order to go into the hero's journey of therapy? And then, of course, after the ordeal has been met, then there's a coming back to life and being welcomed back to life with new gifts and new capacities. But it ain't pretty, it's not, and again, it can be challenging to sell. Okay, you will be stripped of your skin and you will have an ordeal down in the underworld so that you can then come back with your gifts. It's not, just polish your smile and get yourself a nice new image and then that's going to be your hero's journey. It's just not like that. And of course, hero's journey can be a bit problematic when it's talked about in patriarchal terms, like it's often seen as a masculinist trip and all of that. And there's been work over the years is to kind of balance it out with its opposite, which would be the anti-hero. So you have hero and anti-hero, and I think the trickster is a great image for that, like the coyote figure, where you have this ambivalent kind of trickster element who's an anti-hero, who can look at how arrogant the hero can get. If you think about it, the image of thinking about oneself as a hero, of course, is arrogant. And so there's a natural inclination in the psyche to balance things out. And the trickster is going to be one of the figures in there that's going to be doing that, like looking at what's pompous, looking at what's arrogant, and then balancing things out by playing jokes and doing all sorts of things that tricksters do. Well, as I've said, I am a professor at a couple universities. I really enjoy teaching, taught craniosacral work for many years. I was a yoga teacher back in the day. I've taught all sorts of things and have really been, cultivating this teacher identity and teacher capacities over many, many years, and I really enjoy it. And one of the things that I'm up to is writing a book, and that book is going to be called Visionary Somatics, which is kind of my passion these days for offering something new to teach practitioners to do trauma resolution work, but to also do it in a way that there's a capacity in there to be playful, to support people in developing the feeling of safety so that they can play again, and all sorts of surprises there in Visionary Somatics, so that it's, in a sense, it's me. How could it not be, right? So the integrative psychotherapy and the integrative education that I've been immersed in for many years is going to be there in the education, and it's also going to be there in the philosophy. So I love philosophy, and I'm an embodied guy, so I don't see the mind and the body as being separate, and we need to just be in the body all the time or something, but the mind is beautiful, and it can lead to all sorts of creative possibilities, innovations. I want this work to be innovative, not just for myself, but to nurture innovations in other people, to be respectful to the traditions and everything, but to also realize that the radical complexity of our times is new and requires thought innovation and practice innovation. So I'm really passionate about offering that, an innovative new approach coming from all sorts of different angles, neuroscience and touch therapy and clowning and all sorts of different philosophical work. And of course, there's the somatic psychology, there's the kind of drama therapy and expressive arts dimension, and to really attend to the difficult question of human wholeness. I like struggling with this question, to not just throw around that wholeness is the goal and not like qualify what we mean by the goal. I'm about getting clear about what are the elements of wholeness that are in there to integrate, and to assume not that it's going to be some easy project to achieve wholeness. I mean, look at us, we're a mess. But to kind of really get clear about what are the tensions, what are the oppositions that are in the psyche and in culture that keep getting us fragmented and up to trouble and all of that. So there's that, there's the book. I'm working on that every morning that I can. So to finish that, finish the book, it's under contract, and to start a training program, okay? Training practitioners, I want to do a 2-year practitioner training of visionary somatics practitioners, and I want to have that online within about a year or a year and a half. First intake probably in late portion of 2024, mid portion or late portion of 2024, where folks are just committed to being trained in this integrative approach, and challenged to be on the edge of their own thinking and on the edge of their own practice. And I really want it to be available not just to people that are been in the field for 100 years or whatever. There's a place for just starting from scratch and having an integrative approach to different theories and practices. That's what I'm about, bringing different theories and different practices together. And of course, it's the hardest thing to do is to move from theory to practice, and it's a huge bridge to build. And I'm currently building that bridge. So teaching practitioners, have some stuff brewing with my wife over the next few years, where we'll be doing retreats where people can come and just unplug and replug into their depths and do healing work and have some fun, maybe do some watsu, some aquatic massage, and just have fun, do some dancing, relax, have some great food, and then be nurtured by experiencing as facilitators. Of course, we're going to also do men's groups and women's groups separately, me with men's groups, she with women's groups, as a preparation to then come together and do co-gendered work. And so we're going to be developing that over the next few years. I do believe that the vision is to be a part of establishing a retreat center. I like that idea. As I said before, I really like variety. So yeah, a retreat center where there's like a really cool space to do saunas and rituals and personal growth work and educational stuff, cleansing stuff and all of that. But also to travel the world and go to really interesting sites, sacred ritual sites in Ireland or Siberia or something like that, to really just get out there in the world and support people in going deep and making deep meanings in their life. Okay, so yeah, I got a couple men's groups brewing and on offer, and one of them is a more structured approach for guys. It's an 8-week long training, and that is really an opportunity for guys to develop a language or to learn more about how to be emotionally intelligent in relationships. Of course, that's useful in intimate relationships as it is in business relationships, developing emotional intelligence, and really just having adding to the tools in the tool belt in terms of being an effective communicator, having some conflict resolution skills, developing accountability and integrity, being clear about what your mission in life is and what are the things in your way of manifesting that mission. And then once that's been developed and there's a foundation and a language for growth, around about session 4 or something like that, then there's more of what we see in Ignite, which is the other group, and it's a more open-ended process. So in the 8-week thing, about 4 weeks in or something like that, things start to open up once there's been a language that's been developed. And guys, and me as a facilitator, what I've been doing over the years is I have experience and I've had this training in being able to really notice what's emerging as a theme in the group and to connect with that theme and to kind of select a couple of the guys in the group to kind of embody that theme for the group, because obviously we have limited time and limited resources. Not every group, we can't just attend to one individual for a sustained amount of time for the entire group. So we got to go with efficiency. And sometimes that looks like selecting a guy for the group to work on embodying an emerging theme in the group. And then so that type of work, kind of connecting with what's emerging and doing deeper work with 1 or 2 guys in the group, kind of carries on towards the end. And of course, there's wrapping it up and ongoing educational stuff. The other group is for guys that are a little bit more experienced. It's more unstructured in the sense of it would kind of start right in the middle, like how I described with the other group, really just starting with seeing what's emerging in the group and just going for it and figuring out what the blockages are, what's in the way, and attending to that in a place of mutual support. And of course, I'm also supporting guys in supporting each other, so helping to train trainers, helping to lead leaders and teach teachers and all of that. And that one's more of drop-in basis, men's group. Well, I think one of the valuable things is a sense of belonging. So so that's it. There's definitely, I think a lot of us guys are isolated. So there's the sense of belonging, but I think there's also a longing for intensity. Of course, otherwise we wouldn't be seeing so much sort of intense guy stuff on the TV and all of that stuff. I think we farm out a lot of that intense stuff onto TV and to film and sports and stuff like that. And that's all well and good because intense stuff can be a bit risky. But I think we also do yearn for intensity with each other as men. And we're not good at doing it outside of, kind of like drinking a bunch of booze and being crazy or something like that. So to have a new forum that nurtures safe risk and is capable of holding intensity, I think we do crave intensity, creative intensity, and we don't have a whole heck of a lot of forums for that. So I think that's one of the key pieces.